So I don't know if you know, some of you may know. When I work on a message, what happens before Sunday morning may be different than what happens on Sunday morning. My preparation Saturday night may have come to a certain place and I feel good about it, and then I sleep on it. I love to sleep on it, and then it changes. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a little. Today it's a lot. So it'll be a little different. I'm going to read some of the things because I awakened early and put down my thoughts for today that were a little bit different than what they were last night. I want to begin with a story. This is a familiar story, probably for almost all of you. It's a story that gave birth to a book called Acres of Diamonds by Russell Conwell, an old and classic book. And the story goes like this. There was a farmer in Africa who had a small farm, and always the vision and the dream of discovering diamonds. And he knew that that would make his fortune, that would satisfy him, that he would achieve happiness if he could discover diamonds. So at one point he decided, I'm going to sell my farm and travel as far as I can and discover where there are diamonds, and that will be my fortune. And he did sell the farm. That was all that he had. And he took the funds and began to travel, looking and looking and looking for diamonds. Years and years and years he did this and never found diamonds. That fortune that he was dreaming of never materialized. Eventually, he took his own life, disconsolate, beyond hope. The story doesn't end there because the person to whom he sold the farm enjoyed it. And one day when he was walking on the farm, there was a stream. And in the stream, he saw a sparkle of light, a little hint of red, a hint of blue. And there was a large stone that was beneath the surface of the water. And he picked it up and really liked it and brought it back and put it on his mantle because it was really pretty. And just enjoyed that stone. At one point, a friend visited him and gasped as he looked at the stone on the mantle and said, "This is probably the biggest diamond that ever was. This is huge. This is magnificent." The new farm owner had thought that he'd just found a nice crystal and he was enjoying it. And he said, "Well, that's funny because out in the stream, there are lots of others like it. They're maybe not quite as big as this one, but there are lots of others there that are similar and very much the same." And so that acre of diamonds, that magnificent farm that the first farmer had left in search of diamonds, eventually turned into one of the most productive diamond mines. It's a true story that begins with, and of course the book goes from there. I'd like to give that story just a little bit of a different twist, maybe a metaphysical twist, if you will. I'd like to think that that farm represents the Christ within, the inside part of us, the inside of us. And when we look outside to find what we're looking for, when we first look to say, if I can sell the farm and just travel, I'll find what I'm looking for, we miss the boat. When we're able to look inside, we find the fortune that awaits for us there. I love that story. And I think it has to do with our topic today, the topic of well-being. Well-being, the divine inheritance, comes part and parcel with who we are as expressions of the divine. The problem is we fail to remember that many times. We don't remember that the divine is within us. We don't have it firmly fixed in consciousness, so we chase after happiness. I'm using happiness as a synonym for well-being. We chase after it on the outside, hoping to find it. We do that because our thought patterns, those things that rule our lives and often do not serve us, cycle over and over and over again. Well ensconced in habitual thought patterns, perhaps passed on to us by other generations, perhaps taught to us by teachers or mentors, or perhaps copied from those we associate with, rule our lives and preclude our well-being and that of our fellow global inhabitants as well. One of those thought patterns, the one that I would like to focus on today, is that we are separate from each other. We say there is one power and one presence, and that really sounds good to us. It strikes a chord someplace, but the unconscious thought pattern that for the most part rules our lives is that we are separate from each other, divided by race, by religion, by gender designation, by nationality, by political affiliation, by who knows what, perhaps how we choose to spend our leisure time. That separation thinking, as I'm calling it, is stoked by fear. And we are at first suspicious of each other, then fearful and even hateful as we make the one that is separate from us our enemy. We are then far from the truth of who we are, that we are one, and we are cut off from our inheritance of well-being. We adopt a posture of, I am better than the other, living out the thought pattern of separation, forgetting that we are one. In the process, in addition to depriving ourselves of well-being, we deny it to those we are suspicious of, those that we feel better than. We find ourselves protecting our position, our advantage, and the inheritance of well-being then has truly been scuttled. This is where we find ourselves today in regard to race, justice, and equality, those ideals that are the backbone of our Declaration of Independence in the US have not been lived out. Hanging on to the consciousness of separateness that has become the legacy of our history, we find ourselves more divided than ever, and all of us are in pain because of it. The hope of love conquering all and understanding providing a way forward, those are dim hopes. Did you notice those two qualities? Love, the ability to harmonize, understanding, the ability to perceive. Did you recognize them as two of our 12 powers? These are abilities of the divine that are within us. Can we not use these powers to aid us in this troubled time? Certainly we can. But we're going to have to change consciousness to do that. Unfortunately, the consciousness wavelength that most of us are functioning on discriminates against those from whom we have decided we are separate, destroying well-being for all of us. Let me give a simple personal example. So Donna and I don't always agree. I'm sure you thought we did, but we don't. And we approach things each in our own unique way. And I often have said to Donna, and she calls me on it, well, I just think differently than you do. Well, in stressing my difference, instead of finding the way to bring us together, I tend to shift us even further apart. It's a simple illustration, but it's one that shows what we can do on a larger scale. When we have that difference, we push each other away from, we push ourselves away from each other. And in fact, our separateness becomes more distinct, our divided nature greater, and our oneness very much less accessible. So what to do about this? Yes, we could surge out and fight the challenge of separation thinking, but I suggest that we start within if we want to be successful. How do we do that? You won't be surprised that I recommend silence as a starting place. It is in prayer and meditation that we know who we are, what is ours to do or change, and the change will start first in us. However confusing it may seem, what we see manifest in our world is of our own making. We have made some contribution to that reality, and the best starting point in altering the reality is to be aware our connection with it, of our connection with it in ourselves. This takes some humility and a great deal of openness, but it is worth the effort. How do I contribute to this unlikable circumstance, whatever it is, whether it is something mostly personal or a collective concern, such as the concern for true justice in our country and in our time? Only after that inward journey can we authentically speak the truth that comes from the core of our being. And I suggest that this week we all take time for prayer and self-reflection, not self-condemnation, not self-loathing, but just self-reflection. It is in that silence that we will find the truth of us. As we know well, affirmations are important tools for building consciousness, so I have written an affirmation that I call a declaration of well-being that I want to share with you. It includes elements of our Declaration of Independence, and I hope that it resonates with you. I also hope that as we go forward, that what we do in terms of inside work will greatly affect how we act, what we do, what we speak, and the face of what our nation will be as we go ahead. I do that with hope because I think it's surely possible if we start our work in consciousness. And here is that declaration that I have written. I know the truth that emanates from within me. I am not separate. We are one. As divine expressions, each of us is equal, made to connect with each other in one grand life. As such, I respect, love, and lift up everyone as I would be respected, loved, and lifted up. I do not take advantage of another. No one is less than I am, and no one is more than I am. We are all unique, each gifted with life, choice, and well-being, yet we are one. It is so, and so it is. Amen.